Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is Joshua Kahn with the news. Apologies, listeners, I wasn't expecting to be on air today. CM was admiring our studio Fremantle painting when our studio engineer claims she said she needed to bring a dozen cheeseburgers to the Caymans? Are you sure that's what she... Oh, she'd better watch her cholesterol. You're listening to Derry Public Radio.
This is Derry Public Radio.
Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King Book Club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Kahn, alongside CM Alexander.
Hello, everyone.
And Benjamin Graham.
Hey, constant readers.
And today we are returning to Duma one last time as we wrap up the book, Patreon selection from Jason Keene. And CM is leading our discussion. CM, take it away.
Thanks, Josh. Quick recap from last episode. Edgar's show was a success. His friends and family came. He and Pam went big juicy together. And we know how amazing this night was for him because 4 years later, he's telling us it's the best moment of his life. And if we thought that Elizabeth dying at the end of the last section was the heartbreak of this book, King's not done. So last episode, we had mentioned our relief when Edgar had commented that he'd promised himself his daughters would never set foot on the island again. And that was a promise that he kept. I think, Ben, me and you were like, oh, thank God. The next morning, when Edgar sees Ilsa at the hotel, we get some, the worst, most heartbreaking foreshadowing.
He's sitting in the pool because he snuck out of Pam's room. And she is like, I was worried about you all night. I look out my window. Just so happens my dad is sitting there. So I figured I'd come see what's going on. And is talking about the engagement and that he's like, did you take the ring off because it's over or because you didn't want your mom and sister to flip out this entire trip? And she's like, I sent it back because he has some things to think about. And I don't know if it's over, but for right now it is. Handling it very well for a 19-year-old girl.
All of this setup, the emotional weight that they are piling on top of this every scene between him and his daughter, so that when, the other foot drops, I'm mixing my metaphors. Anyway, what I'm trying to say, it's so obvious that tragedy is coming.
It's like when we spend an episode on a character in a series that we don't really get a lot of and we finally care about them. And it's like, are you going to kill them at the end of this? But that's why you're making me care, you asshole.
But the way that King plays on, we know something terrible is going to happen. And it's so obvious from so early on that it's going to be something between her and her husband or her fiance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't remember
really?
what happened.
Nice.
So
Wow.
it was a quite a surprise. This twist.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, I'm so sorry. I thought, because the way you started that off, you had this look that I'm very familiar with on your face.
Sure.
And I thought you were going to be like, yeah, it doesn't work for me. It's a cheap, but I'm glad that it's, because even though, it is telegraphing something, that's not the point. The point is it's something you can't anticipate, but I was so bothered by it because the way he foreshadows it, it's like, yes, I know you're going to do this horrible thing, but he describes it just, even the way Edgar just talks about it being the last time he saw her. It's beautiful writing.
Later when she's getting on the plane, he's like, I wish I would have seen her more clearly as she walked away because it was the last time I saw her.
I want to argue that it's not Kinda.
It kind of
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
I want to talk about that because I need to theorize on. Okay, well, we'll get there. We're going to jump back just a little bit, though, because that morning when Edgar walked the walk of shame out of Pam's room to his own, he had an alarming message from Wireman.
It's that Jack found the picnic basket, and what is inside it, he needs to see for himself. I like that he's like, I'm not trying to be cryptic. Anybody could listen to this. Just come look.
Yeah, he's just like, we've got a bull hunt on our hands. And we got to get going.
Right. And that somebody's been inside Edgar's house.
Yeah.
That Jack had come by and whatever he saw freaked him out so badly that they are going to meet him at the house and wait for him so they can walk in with him so he can see it.
Yeah, and if he beats them there, he specifically tells him, wait
Yeah.
outside, do not go in.
Yeah.
It's very cute. And scary.
It's very cute.
Edgar meets Wireman and Jack at Big Pink and finds out that Wireman has made an interesting but ultimately good choice. He's just told Jack everything, not even trying to like disguise things as things that might be real, like more believable. And Jack, I love Jack. He's just this chill dude who he's on board for all of it.
There is a good chance this contradicts previous statements that I've made on this
Yeah.
podcast. I do not know if my stance has changed or not. But I think I really love it when this happens, where they're just like, this character needs brought into the story. We're not going to fuck around with all the incredulousness
Yeah.
and like going through seeing them. He's just shows up and he's like, I told Jack everything. He's caught up. He believes it. Don't worry about it. It's cool.
But it's also partially because of what Jack saw that he's able to be like, yeah, this is too
Yeah.
fucking weird. I'm kind of on board, I guess.
I like, though, that King gives him a little more depth than even that, though,
Yeah.
because he's like, yeah, when I first met you on the island, I had this strange feeling that you belonged on
That's
Key.
right.
Yeah. I mean, that was like way, way long ago.
Yeah, that is a really good line.
Let's talk about what they actually see when they go inside the house, what all their cryptic weirdness is all about.
Well, we've had people walk through Big Pink before, but this time there are 3 sets of footprints, 1 large and 2 sets of small footprints that go up the stairs to Little Pink and then come back down the stairs. And they walk up the stairs, tiptoeing around the sandy footprints. And he's like, not because we were preserving them, but because we just didn't want to touch them. Yeah. And on his easel is what they misinterpret as a question, which is, where our sister? It's like scrawled on a fresh canvas that he also doesn't recall having set up a fresh canvas before he left.
And of note, it's in red paint.
Yes.
Of course it's red.
Yeah. Yeah. Why wouldn't it be?
I just mentioned that because we didn't really talk about that a lot as a theme. Like
Yeah.
all
Oh,
these
the
things are
reds,
red.
yeah.
It's come up way more listeners than we've even mentioned. It's effective though. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
What did you guys think of the message, where our sister? Because I was completely, when the reveal comes into place, I was like, oh, duh. But I had no idea.
I think I was also just like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
spooky thing
there are
for a
like
ghost to write.
18 daughters.
Well, honestly, if they just put a period instead of not putting any punctuation, he wouldn't have confused it as a question.
Wireman has the best suggestion. Let's leave Duma Key.
Go away.
Yeah. And Edgar's like, it's really kind of too late for that because Percy is awake and we need to drown her back to sleep. And we don't know what any of that's like nonsense to us right now, but we're going to learn more about Percy here pretty soon when
Well, that was one of Drown Her Back to Sleep was the one of
something,
The
yeah,
table
Elizabeth-
is leaking.
the
Elizabeth
table is
said,
leaking. One of
yeah.
the last 3 things she said.
Yeah, and you'll want to,
You'll
but
want
you
to,
mustn't.
but you mustn't.
But we're going to get some more of Percy, though, because Edgar and the others are going to look in the picnic basket together. What do they find inside?
Inside the picnic basket is some of Libet's sketches. Some of them are things we've kind of seen before. There's almost the exact same drawing that was Hello when Edgar wrote it. And there's also a drawing of her dad screaming so hard that his eyes and nose bleed. And that's disturbing. And then there's 4 silver harpoons for the harpoon gun.
And some colored pencils,
Oh, yes.
which are going to become
More art supplies,
important
yes.
later. And there's also a painting of Percy, the Percy, that shows a woman on a deck of a derelict ship in a red robe.
cloak.
Yeah. Not at all. I thought it was the lady that Carson cheated with. That can't be it. Okay, I was so like indignant for a second and then had to walk it back because when Josh, you mentioned they see the silver tipped harpoon thingies, slugs,
Spears,
bullets, harpoon bullets.
Harpoons. They're called harpoons.
No, harpoon bullets. Sure.
Yeah. And
You're doing like an ATM machine. No, they're just called harpoons.
but Jack is like, oh, Silver. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
That's right.
This is used to kill werewolves. And then Wireman interjects, somebody's like, oh, so these vampires. And Edgar doesn't immediately, when he responds, he doesn't immediately correct that. He says something else. And I'm just like throwing a little hissy fit listening to this because I'm like, they're not vampires. And then he's like, and by the way, it's not vampires. But it is like silver representing something pure that cannot be touched. So, anything unclean or...
You need a silver weapon to do damage against ghosts.
True.
Yeah.
They have damage resistance. So
this brings us to chapter 15, Intruder. And Edgar is spending the evening learning about Elizabeth's past and more about who Percy is. So let's talk about how he's learning this.
It's really cool. This is one of my... If we haven't talked about this since Rose read, I really think automatic writing is really cool.
It's kind of wild, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a neat thing when it shows up in a horror story.
And that automatic drawing is cooler or less cool?
Equally cool, I would say. He begins using Libet's art supplies specifically, or like colored pencils, right?
Yeah.
To start divining clues. Like literally this last part of the book is a point and click adventure game.
Ghost.
Like
He's Whoopi Goldberg.
It's Mist. They're looking around and finding clues to find where the
I love this part.
Doll is. It's really good.
It's so cool.
It's really good is the thing.
I love as he's kind of piecing it together, the idea of what could have happened that was so bad he screamed himself into hemorrhage, and realizing that Elizabeth's response to that is just probably better to forget that I can draw altogether. And if I keep denying that I can draw, old age and senility will take care of the rest of forgetting for me. Turns out.
Which brings me actually to take a little break from the plot. This kind of brings me into my major thing I wanted to talk about is we kind of hinted at the themes of the book last episode, but we haven't like really dug into it because we like the characters and like the plotting so much.
So much, yeah.
What is this book about? And I fully recognize that this could be one of King's like a cigar is a cigar book where it's just a story. But there are so many of these, the red representing anger, and the closest I could get is like healing through art. Healing from trauma through art. But that can't be it because the art only causes death and destruction.
Do you think it's about not... I feel like there's like a lot of elements of regret in there, and thinking about the recurring theme of a new life and being asked that question, Wireman and Edgar, so many times, basically like, and thoughtless comments people make about, oh, aren't you glad your life got destroyed because now you have this new life, and isn't this thing that you're experiencing really awesome? And this like gets so dark for him. So maybe it's about being okay with, I don't know. I don't want to say like, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I think I'm landing somewhere in between, as I often do with the three of us, in that I think the message...
you're the meat in our sandwich.
That's what I tell everyone.
Is that it is about healing through art, but it's also about the depths from which the art comes stays with the art. I get like the darkness... Again, we talked about this last episode, very first line of the book, that the black line is a way for darkness to seep through. And that has stuck with me through this whole reading. And that's what I feel like the trauma that the people that Percy has used to wield their power wouldn't have had that power had they not been so traumatized. And so I don't know if that's the depths of your darkness unlocking something else. I don't know.
I don't know. I've been thinking about it since I finished it, and I'm like, I'm kind of down for just being like, yeah, it has some recurring themes, but they don't really add up to much. Just enjoy a nice story about.
That's probably what it is.
Some
honestly,
it kind of feels
pals.
like it's about how when something bad happens, you can't recover, and more bad things will happen and nothing's ever sacred or good
Yeah.
for long.
Yeah.
It is so dark.
Yeah, the ending, and what happened with Lisbeth is she
Did you just say Elizabeth? Did you just
Elizabeth, yeah, I fucked it up. But the Libet is that she becomes this amazing artist and she wields her power of imagination, and then it fucks everything up so bad that she's like, I can never do art again. What are you telling us, King?
She loses everything. Edgar loses everything.
Yeah, so
Well, I
art is
wonder-
bad?
I wonder if let's keep thinking about this as we
Yeah.
talk about what happens, and I wonder if we'll
Unlock
come
it.
to another. I wonder if we'll have something smart to say by the end of this episode.
It's anyone's guess.
Anyway, so Josh, as you said, we understand more about how Percy was using Elizabeth, and we kind of got glimpses of that in the how to draw a picture section. So we know the tests essentially that Percy put her through to kind of like test her power and wield that and sort of, groom her, I guess.
Yeah.
After doing this, Edgar eventually goes back downstairs to see something pretty upsetting, but not really unexpected. It's Percy's ship anchored alarmingly close to the shore. And he's about to call Jack and say, like, you see this shit too, right? This part is so fun. Like, he's not alone.
Scooby-Doo ghost shenanigans.
I also imagine kind of a Scooby-Doo-esque
Yeah.
water zombie.
I was thinking of the Creepshow anthology.
Yeah,
hell yes.
Much better. Ours is far more goofy. Yeah, there is a clearly drowned dead man in his kitchen with a manacle hanging off. One is clamped around his wrist and the other one is dangling free, and he sees it and knows it's for him.
Ooh, that's
That
horrible.
It is coming for me, and it's going to drag me down, and I'm going to join the crew. He doesn't want to turn away from it because it moves faster than he anticipates it can move. And so he keeps backing up slowly, and then he hears Wireman. Then Wireman's like, suck silver, muchacho, and shoves a candlestick in his face and caves the skull in. It rules.
It's very cool.
I love that Edgar screams when Wireman speaks up because
Yeah.
he didn't know he was there either. He needs to lock his doors and set his
Seriously.
burglar alarm. I think
And Edgar
ghosts
looks
treat
up at
those-
Wireman and thinks, he's fabulous. Or what does he say at the end? Later on in the
I
near
thought
the
you
end
were
of the
making
book,
that up. I
No,
thought you were
later on in the book,
I don't
Edgar
believe
thinks
you.
back to this moment and he's like, I imagine Wireman jumping in and
That's
saving
right.
me with the candlestick. He was stupendous or
Yeah,
something
That's right.
a little in support of my shipping.
I think this is your fanfic. I don't think it happened. Don't encourage Ben, Josh.
I do want to jump back to one thing before we deal with the aftermath, and that is between him coming downstairs and the zombie occurrence, he reflects on his interview with Mary Iyer, which we're going to talk about Mary a lot in this episode.
fucking
Didn't know I
character.
would. Forgot about her.
Completely dismissed
Yeah.
as a character because I'm like, oh, this
It made sense in the world of the art gallery, and I
Yeah.
thought that was it.
I thought she left the story when she dropped him off at the hospital.
Yeah.
But he reflects on, in the interview, she said, is it like getting, driving your old car and then getting keys to a souped up GTO? Or is this talent like getting keys to a fully furnished mansion? All these comparisons. And he's basically like, I would have said yes to whatever the fuck she said because it all makes equally no sense. But looking at Libet's art, he knows the real answer. And it is like being given a tongue when you've been mute. And that fucking rules so hard.
you can't use that skill because it'll make Ghost
I know,
kill
I just-
everyone.
Well, this is maybe we are back onto something because it is about, this is where he reflects on identity. Memory is our identity. And Libet basically had to, because of Percy infecting her after her accident, was forced to forget
Lose
her identity.
herself, yeah.
She had to, in order to keep people safe, she had to lose her entire identity for her whole life.
That's so sad.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
let the key be destroyed and Percy wreak havoc the way she would have had Edgar not stopped the paintings going out.
That's so bleak.
Yes.
I love it. Well, other things are going to happen. Maybe we'll continue to develop this. Oh, so at the end of this confrontation, Wireman and Edgar are like, oh shit, Jack. And they run over to Elizabeth's house to make sure that he's okay. And Jack is fine. No one came to visit him. And I can't remember if it's here or later when he's like, oh, I'm not special, you guys. And Edgar's like,
Yeah.
no, you're special. You're just not important.
Yeah. He's like, did you see the ship out there? And he's like, no, I was watching something on the VHS.
I was having a
watching
normal life.
Yeah.
It's here when the three are speculating on how afraid of Edgar Percy must be to become so aggressive that Edgar finally understands what's happening. He's like, oh, my pictures are dangerous to the people who bought them, especially anybody who bought the Girl and Ship series. And Edgar does 3 things that I'll briefly lay out and then we can talk about what happens. He calls the art gallery and leaves a message begging them to hold off on shipping any paintings for a few days. And then he calls Tom and gets his answering machine, which prompts a call to Pam, which results in several more calls. But let's talk about the most interesting one, the phone call to Tom.
He gets a voicemail, and the voicemail is Tom. The voicemail is specifically to Edgar saying, I know you're dead, and now I'm going to go kill Pam.
We're going to be
And
together. We're going to be
together.
married on the boat.
Yeah.
Or ship. Yeah, so that's a horrifying thing to hear, which is why he then calls Pam. And Pam fortunately answers. And she's like, Tom is dead.
He was driving on the freeway, speeding, and veered off the road into a wall and died on it.
On purpose.
On purpose.
We find
No
out.
skid marks.
Yep, he hit a retaining wall at 73 miles an hour. And Edgar's like, okay, he had a moment of sanity. And he tells Pam basically, like, Tom did that to save your life. And Pam also confirmed that Tom had bought one of Edgar's sketches and had it with him during the flight. And Wireman took the phone at this point and asked Pam, like, okay, you need to call these people. He's kind of like still being a good agent, just in a different way, and just ask them to burn it. To burn whatever they have. Pam, what do you guys think about how Pam handled this conversation? Because it's insane.
I hate Pam. I felt like a person last episode. I hate her. I hate
Pam's
her
a
so
real
much.
fucking roller coaster.
I hate
You
her.
know
Like-
what, though? I hate her when we get her through Edgar. We were with her last episode and we liked her. So again, I guess the theme is these two people, not a good couple.
No.
But she's still an asshole. We've recapped like who has what, and she's said that she'll make a call to Bosie so that Bosie will get rid of his. And there was someone else that she was gonna call to see. Oh, she's gonna call the girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, to make sure Ilsa and the not favorite one. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Melinda?
The one with the
Melinda.
French.
Oh, no,
the
geez.
one with the French
Yeah.
boyfriend.
Yeah. So Edgar brings Jack and Wireman up to speed on what he's learned about Elizabeth and Percy. And they talk about some ideas about who Percy might be, you know, kind of going through all that, like Greek mythology. It's short for Persephone.
fucking
She's in a
so
red
fucking
robe. Like
stupid.
it's
It's only stupid because in this part of the conversation, one of them says, "Do you think she meant Persephone?" And they're like, probably not. That's insane. And then later it is the Persephone. Like, it's ridiculous.
we love our Greek mythology. Edgar thinks she's older than all that though, which is kind of scary.
I think Percy is an extremely cool king villain.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Percy,
Yeah.
Percy is a tack.
Yeah.
Percy tacked Libet.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the statue.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But I think it's really cool how little the story does to explain any of Percy's deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ghost ship. This lady is not human. What is
I love
she?
it.
Yeah.
It also
Don't
gives
worry
me-
about it. It's scary.
It gives me Rose Madder vibes, and maybe that's the
Mm-hmm.
Greek mythology piece because we had themes of that in Rose Madder too.
It's cool.
It's,
I think
it's about the book is about strong women. Got it. Done.
Nailed it.
Yep. No, this goes in the trilogy, the classic King trilogy of Misery, Rose Madder, and
Oh my God, Derry fight night. We need Percy. Okay, back on track. Edgar thinks that Tessie and Laura were drowned as punishment for Elizabeth trying to draw Percy out of existence, to erase her essentially, because he figures out that she had tried once she realized what was happening, her and Nan Melda, they tried some things, and we'll talk more about that. But at this point, Edgar's like, I don't know the rest, but I think that we can get the answers at the south end of the island. And he's thinking to himself that Percy will probably meet them there. And so they all three agree, let's maybe first, though, like, get a full night's rest, go in the light of day, which people never do, which I just love. It's like broad daylight when ghosts have less power. So they are going to make the trip tomorrow morning, and before they can get that rest, though, Pam calls back with some bad news.
Came and had a heart attack, which could be the painting or could be that he was enormous. He was enormous and in bad health. Pam really does try to say, don't put this 100% on you. And he's like, yeah, I'm sure it's just a coincidence, likely.
And now we're back at chapter 16 with how to draw a picture. And I can't remember if one of you had already mentioned this, but the chapters of how to draw a picture change their Roman numerals while the other chapters are regular numbers. I really noticed it here. So Edgar is telling us that when he was looking at the picture of Carson and Ilsa, he was focused on the wrong thing. And his focus on Carson got me. And I never considered that he was wrong because Carson sucks so bad.
Yeah. His name's Carson.
And Smiley, he calls himself Smiley. Edgar wakes up with the horrible realization that he forgot Ilsa had asked for the picture he painted when she visited, the ones with the tennis balls.
Yeah.
And he gave it to her. I also forgot.
Me too.
Right away, he calls Ilsa after struggling through. Do you guys want to talk about just this post-brain damage memory thinking sideways thing just to call her because he can't remember her phone number?
Yeah, this whole sequence, because he's under so much duress and not only getting the number, but also Ilse asks him trivia once they're on the phone. So he just is having a bad time. But he ends up having to write his like social security number.
And Cayman's voice is guiding him.
And he starts writing numbers that come to mind. And then in his head, he sees them turn red. And he gets all but the last number. And he's like, you know what? Muscle memory. Just start dialing it in.
Yeah.
And go for it. Was I talking to you guys about the missing person there was a news story. This was years and years ago. Somebody was in an accident, lost his memory, and the police were trying to, he was just found walking around and couldn't remember anything. They were trying whatever. And somebody came in and basically, while the detective was talking, slid the thing in front of him and was like, can you sign this real quick? And the guy just picked up a pen, signed it, pushed it back. And then everybody in the room stopped. And
wow, that's
they
awesome.
had his name. Yeah. And so that's what this made me think of.
That's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, so he calls and she answers, but she doesn't sound good. And he is so fucking mad at Pam immediately.
They hate each other most of the time.
Yeah, I hate Pam. Pam can go to hell.
Well, he's like, how could she not notice how our daughter sounds? And then he's like, well, that was a while ago she called her. Maybe whatever's happening is just progressed and she sounds much worse than she did.
I thought she had downed a bottle of pills. That was because of the sluggish.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like.
It really, I thought that was the clock we were fighting against and that he was going to be on the phone when she died. And I was going to lose my mind forever.
Yes.
See, for a moment, I thought it was going to be, because he keeps saying, oh, I was focused so hard on Carson. That was the wrong thing to focus on. I thought it was going to be she murders him.
Ooh, that would have been funny.
Which would have been different, but...
I again thought more it was going to be something like that. I had no idea what...
No, because you could never predict this.
No. Well, before we get to that, though, let's talk about what Edgar has Ilsa do while they're on the phone together. After, she believes it's him.
Once we've established it's really him.
Oh, because did we say why she...
She got a call saying that he was dead, and she decided that she didn't want to live if he was gone. And she was just collapsed in bed, and he asks her about the painting, and she says it's weird. I tacked it up in my kitchen or my dining room, and when I got home, it was above my bed.
And she's saying this all sluggishly.
Yeah, it's
upsetting.
And She's like, I don't remember putting it there, but the same push pins are in it, so I assumed I did. And he says, take it off the wall, throw it in the oven, and burn it. And it takes some convincing, but she does, and then it fucking bites her before
That's
she throws
horrible.
it in. It's so fucking cool.
Biting is so creepy.
Yeah, it is. Without consent, anyway.
She does sound herself, though.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as she burns the picture, it's like all of a sudden, she's just Ilsa again. And she's like, oh my God, Dad, like, you're alive. I'm alive.
And she's completely fine.
Well, it sucks because he's like, when this happens, you're like, so why did he never see her again? And I was thinking, oh, the bite becomes infected and she dies. I don't know.
It's been interesting.
Okay, more.
I was starting to think that it wouldn't be a death, that it would be basically his third life was going to be a repeat of Libet's having to lose his identity completely,
That
start
makes more
from
sense.
fresh, not contact anybody from that life because it had infected them.
Was that theory crushed, though, when we get the
Absolutely.
foreshadowing when he hangs up? Yeah.
That was part of leaving everything behind.
Hardcore. Not long
I wish
af-
I was right.
I do too. Not long after this, Edgar gets his own foreshadowing of what's going to happen, and he just desperately tries to ignore that Ilsa's not okay.
It's the end of the game. He's walking home and tennis balls start washing up on the beach. And he runs into the house and there is a message from Pam.
I'm sorry. I just love this is I'm a child. When he looked toward Big Pink, he saw a mass of balls.
I love you, CM.
These balls mean nothing, he tried to tell himself.
His balls mean nothing.
Sorry, go on.
Good stuff.
Elsie was brutally murdered in her apartment
Oh,
by Mary. The phone call is the voicemail is Pam telling him he's a fucking dick and he should have died and she'll kill him with his bare hands and whatever because Mary drove from Sarasota to Rhode Island and with a gun and killed her. And
Not with the gun, though.
Oh, yeah,
we don't know that part yet.
Because, Edgar mentions that the police, he's telling us, had failed to tell Pam something else that Mary had brought, which gets uncovered later.
Mary showed up at Elsie's door, held her at gunpoint, and when she turned around, hit her in the back of the head with the gun, and then proceeded to hit her several more times, fracturing her skull in several places, dragged her to the bathtub, filled it with water, poured a bunch of salt in it, and then drowned her. Thankfully, she never woke up from the hit. When the reveal comes out that she was drowned, that was the thing that I was most horrified about, was that she had to experience that after all this. And then when I was like, thank God, at least she was basically dead already. Very small silver lining.
That's how dark this book is.
Yeah.
Something happens next that we'll forget about. I at least forgot about it until the end because we don't get the whole story here. But after this conversation, his right arm starts to itch and he tells the Percy thing like, okay, if you bring her back, I'll draw whatever you want. I don't give a shit. And he has, though, Elizabeth's, one of her last words, her warning ringing in his head. And that's, one of those three things, which was, you will want to, but you mustn't. And he goes outside and he grabs a broom and he goes into one of his painting states. So we don't know what this is all about just yet. This brings...
Not what I thought it was going to be.
No. It's so brief, too. Mm-hmm. And everything else that happened is so surreal that I forgot about it entirely.
The whole end of this is just heavy-ass magic.
It's so, yeah. This brings us to chapter 17, the south end of the key. Wireman finds Edgar outside, coming out of his painting state, and guides him back in the house. And he listens to Pam's message and calls and just talks to her very briefly. But it would be really hard to talk to a parent right after that.
Well, he also knows that Percy plays tricks.
Yeah, so it's good to confirm.
This is also calling back and double checking reality.
I kept also thinking that, and then I'm like, yeah, but King told us 5,000 times no. But that's what I love. I wanted it to be true so badly that I was trying to ignore the thing the author told us.
Oh, absolutely.
Edgar wisely says, he needs a 2-hour nap before they go south. Because he's sort of like, this happened and he's clearly devastated. But Ilsa's death gets put on the back burner because we have stuff we have to do. And so he's like, okay, wake me up in 2 hours. And instead, he gets woken up several hours later. And when Jack and Wireman finally wake him up, Edgar tells them what he thinks happened between Mary and Ilsa. That's where we get the reveal of all of that, you know, and he elaborates that he thinks that she pretended to be Carson to get Ilsa to open the door. And it just sucks. And
it is never explained other than Percy's evil possession why Mary would have done this.
Yeah.
it's really sad too, because Mary was just this character who hadn't done anything wrong.
right.
She was very nice to Edgar. She'd had an interesting life and was not, I don't think, a murderer.
Yeah. And then, and we should mention after she drowned her, she shot herself in the head on Ilsa's
Yes, I
couch.
forgot about that. Jeez. And at this point, Edgar is kind of thinking like, I don't remember what happened in the sand earlier, but I think I drew Ilsa,
Pretty sure I did what I was
Yeah.
told not to do.
which I am again going to forget about.
Yes.
So let's talk about their preparation for this trip, the things that they pack and take with them.
It's a good
The
montage.
most important flashlight of all time.
Yeah, they have the basket with some art supplies, the harpoon, and it's way heavier than it was before because it's full of magazines for a Desert Eagle, which is awesome. Yeah, lots of food, several cans of Pepsi, which become also very important.
Water bottles.
Water bottles.
And then Edgar does, I think that's all that was in Edgar then makes some sketches.
Oh, yeah. He asks them. I love that because he's trying to catch them all up because while he's been asleep between the big pink at the beginning of this reading where he was running his right hand over Libet's paintings, getting all of those visions that we have been reading in the how to draw a picture, he's trying to catch them up. And they're like, we're losing daylight. Like, we have a limited time. We don't want to be there when sundown hits. And he's like, I'm almost done. All right, you know everything. And they go like, you can almost hear the chairs creak for them to get up. And he's like, but wait, sit down. I need to draw you. With just a neutral expression. It's such a good idea.
Think about something that made them
makes
happy. He draws something else too that he needs Jack's help for.
Yeah, Jack says he's going to. Oh, he asks Jack if he has a camera, like a Polaroid camera, and he asks if he can take a picture of the drawbridge that goes into Duma while it's up. Make sure you get a good shot of those gears that constantly break down.
Yeah, we
So
forgot to
that he
mention
can
that.
sabotage government property.
Yeah, and this kind of helps us understand what Libet had tried to do as a child, which I don't think we get as much of yet at this point, but later I think we get more of that story of her making that attempt to draw Percy and then erase her. Yeah, Edgar is going to erase the mechanisms that open the drawbridge so it breaks and they can't open it, which, you know, it kind of opened my mind to all the stupid shit I would do if I could draw things to life. Would you make dinner or draw dinner?
Well, I can't draw for shit, so
I've heard that drawn dinners have no calories.
There you fucking go. Okay, sorry. So after all of this, they head out, but not before Edgar notices a suspicious looking heron. And this is,
A judgy looking heron.
yeah. Okay, this is where it just gets all sorts of strange and surreal, like something out of one of his paintings, the rest of this book. So they are making their way.
This was another
to-
thing that made me think of Tack. Is the heron.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that.
yeah, King's playing the hits this
Yeah,
month.
he is.
So as they make their way there, Jack starts to get sick, like Ilsa did. And this is where we figure out what the drawings are for.
Yeah, he erases the expression that was.
That freaked
on
me out
Jack's
for a
face.
second, though, based on Candy Brown.
And then he draws a happy face, draws a smile, and starts to feel better.
I love that Wireman's like, when he sees him do that, he's like, Percy's fucked, man.
He's like, Percy shouldn't have fucked with you. Shouldn't have fucked with my daughter.
Yeah. We keep, and I like those, we keep getting comments like that from Edgar. Because, you know, you're like, how can you even like do anything?
Yeah. It never leaves his mind.
Yeah.
I love that they constantly keep it as a
Motivation.
I'm pushing it back.
Yeah.
I'm pushing it to the back burner, but it is right here.
Yeah. When they get to the house called Heron's Roost, there's a phrase scratched into the plaque on the metal gate.
Hell invokes hell?
And
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Wireman thinks that John left that message as he was abandoning the house, which I think is creepier than if it was vandalism. Because vandalism doesn't mean anything, but a person who lived there, like leaving that's a scathing review.
In retrospect, him leaving that after what happens.
Oh, fuck. Yeah. I also love that they have a hard time getting in, but when we eventually do get inside, the note that there is no vandalism inside. There's no beer cans or condoms. It has been untouched entirely, but by nature.
I'm gonna kind of go through these beats, just sort of like set up scenes,
Yeah.
just because there's so much I think we're gonna want to talk about just about
Sure.
the book itself, and a lot happens here. So I'll just kind of hit the highlights, but then if there's anything else you want to touch on, just
I was just going to say as big end of the Talisman vibes.
yeah,
For sure.
because we were in this dilapidated, creepy house. So once they're at Heron's Roost, this is where Edgar starts to realize that things are not going to be as easy as he'd hoped or laid out in his head, and he feels like he maybe has underestimated Percy just a little bit. And the surreal walk inside the house does not help because they see all manner of upsetting, spooky things that kind of gave me Annihilation vibes.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's just wrong what they see.
Did Charlie give you guys nightmares? The depiction of Charlie moving around?
No, but I do love it. It's so scary. It's so scary.
Have you... Okay, do you know what the vision of this, Auntie Donna's Big Ol' House of Fun?
I did not finish that. I still watched the first episode or two. Are you about to say the words cowdoy to me?
No! I am not.
Okay.
There is... One of the episodes is called Nighttime, and there is a scene that involves a stationary character like Charlie moving independently in that same kind of weird, this shouldn't be moving this way kind of thing. I'll show you guys the clip after
I'm
we
excited
record.
about that.
I had nightmares because, it's the way it's described. Like as they're walking up to the house, the three of them notice a man skittering around the lawn. Skittering.
He's skittering, but his legs don't move. His legs are
Yes.
always at the cocked mid-run angle.
I just want to mention here that Edgar starts to understand that what they're seeing are Elizabeth's nightmares brought to life by Percy. They also, the way things are described, like the shingles of the roof are all messed up and it looks like giant's teeth poking up. And the pool is described as like being just this
Tar pit.
black, like full of black evil. They're realizing here too that she's drawing on their fears because like Jack almost broke out into a dead run and Edgar had to stop him. Wireman
Those were a
hates something.
shitload of spiders that were on the ceiling of the porch.
Edgar's afraid of alligators. He figures out.
I love that bit because an alligator shows up. Like the other two are like fucking scared of spiders. I'm scared of whatever snakes. And they go in and then they see an alligator and Edgar's like, well, fucking I'm apparently terrified of alligators. Because fuck this.
I love that Wireman shoots it for him though. He kills it.
Wireman is a gunslinger.
He is.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We end this chapter with Edgar telling Wireman that the heron he keeps seeing, because he keeps seeing it over and over, is sure suspicious. And hey, man, you know what? Next time you see that thing, just shoot it. And Wireman's like, no problem, muchacho. Now we're at chapter 18, Novene. Edgar, Jack, and Wireman are looking through the house, and they find a handwritten note in an old roll-top desk.
So this is...
I didn't get any of this. I was so like, everything else happening, I was like, what?
Yeah, this is some time to introduce a bootlegging subplot.
Which we've heard about it.
Because Mary told Edgar about it.
Which is also, it's a very small thing, but I love that King has essentially tied in every detail we have learned about Duma Key.
Yeah.
Everything we've learned has become important at some point. It's fucking cool as hell.
Oh, it's like painting by numbers.
Get out. Leave your own house.
I just can't believe we haven't done that yet.
So in this roll-top desk, there is a single piece of paper. It is a note signed DD, which is the guy's name, something Davis. He was a real bootlegger, but fictionally used in this. It's a letter to John saying, hey, I've got this shipment. Here's what all the stuff's labeled as. I did get some table and like champers, which is champagne. There's some obvious ones, but then there's some that's like, this is just a weird code for whiskey, I guess. And says that he dropped him off. And they see it and table. We've been hearing the table is leaking, and it's still not much more clue, but I like that Wireman just taps it and he's like, this. You see this, right?
So the word.
This. They said the thing. They said the name of the thing.
Wireman also suggests that there's something on their side because they were able to find that piece of paper, and the house is just so dilapidated. It is Florida, so it's like things like paper are not going to last that long there, and it's in good enough condition that they can read it.
Right, like the floors and stuff are spongy.
Everything's rotting. Yeah. And that's not the only clue they find. And again, thank goodness that Wireman is here to tell them,
Seriously.
hey man, Elizabeth's current house has this hidden compartment. And since that house is sort of like a redo version of this one, I bet that the staircase here has a secret compartment as well. And it does.
Did
But
they
it's
ever
locked.
explain why it's called a ha-ha?
No.
Because it's a secret. So you're like, haha.
I guess.
I'm embarrassed that I almost said the exact same thing.
I'm embarrassed I beat you to it.
I do love that there's this moment where they're like, it's locked. What, we gotta find a key. And like, oh wait, just pull real hard.
Yeah.
Because what is it?
It is a secret compartment inside it. Again, every time Jack reaches into something, Edgar's sure he's gonna get pulled to hell. But it is a cookie tin that says Elizabeth, her things engraved on it. And inside is Novine, which I was expecting Novine to be a villain.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
I thought
I was so surprised.
The whole,
pleasantly
like-
surprised.
Yeah, the whole like Reba Naveen thing, like parallel.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be the
Well,
big bad.
Edgar does too, because he feels horror. Like the feeling he gets inside of him when he sees the doll is super upsetting. And he even thinks that if he looks at it for too long, he's going to lose his mind.
It also is because it's been so well preserved compared to everything else, because it's been in this lockbox, protected mostly. The way he says something like, it almost looks like her lipstick is freshly done because it's still so red.
This next part is super upsetting because they're all like,
Well, it's upsetting, but you know how we've been talking about, why isn't there an adaptation of this?
because this
This is
would
the scene.
yeah.
It's the scene right here.
So they're all like, too bad. Like, we'd love to know what this doll has seen. Like, too bad she can't talk. And so this is where we find out that Jack probably never got laid much as a young man.
Yeah,
No shade to ventriloquists, but
Clearly no shade.
This is such a weird thing because like it kind of implies that like, okay, Edgar has this talent that is kind of tied to his like supernatural abilities. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but
where's
this felt
Jack's
like
head
they're
injury?
like, yeah, Jack, yeah, like literally. I thought this was being like, oh yeah, this is Jack's. He has the magical healing art of ventriloquism, and he can use it to talk to the dead.
Jack is a medium.
Well, yes. And so it works, but also maybe there's a little bit of magic in him because Edgar did have to redraw his mouth.
That's true.
To make him not sick. To make him not.
Sure.
He did ventriloquism, and Edgar erased and redrew his mouth. That's fun. That's a fun connection.
I really thought you were gonna drop something really mind blowing on
I
us.
like that. I never would have made that connection had we not gone down this ridiculous road. But I do kind of like the idea that it helps, because he mentions ventriloquism is one of those things that it's
Use
a
it or
skill you
lose it,
have
yeah.
to use, and it takes him like 3 tries. But as the tries go, Jack keeps slipping further away. And Novine is coming out, and he doesn't even realize it as he's doing it, and then he's just kind of gone at a certain point, and Novine takes over.
This is the part of the movie that would work. Just seeing a
No.
kind of catatonic guy with a talking doll on his lap.
I don't know how you do it and it not be too silly to ruin the tension that everything else is built to. You know, like that's the hard part.
Well, let's set the scene and our listeners can tell us. Do one of you want to talk about
Oh, he sits down and he starts talking for the dummy. And yeah, like you said at first, he's trying not to move his lips, but you can totally see he's moving his lips. Yeah. But as it fades out, he is just becoming this radio for who we believe is Libet's nanny, basically.
Nan Melda.
And Nan Melda.
Unexpected hero of the story.
Love it.
Fucking
Yeah.
A. I love that shit.
So Edgar starts to draw the story then of what Jack is narrating through the doll. No Jack. No Veen Jack. Nan Jackma.
Perfect.
You guys could just start talking and I'd stop.
No,
nope. You're just staring at me
no.
like you
if
want
we don't
more.
talk, you'll say more nonsense.
Ben and I are on the exact same page.
Anyway, so the doll is telling this story and explaining to Edgar what he needs to do with Elizabeth's colored pencils. And we find out that basically like Nan Melda is like Wireman, the idea guy. She's got an instinct back then and now for what to do.
And it's crazy because we get so many little pieces that I feel like I took the worst notes in the world because they're so all over the place.
We've kind of gotten them already through some of the how to draw a picture chapters too. Because Novine talks about like, okay, Nan Melda saw the frog with teeth. Like she saw these things and that's what caused her to confront Elizabeth in the kitchen that day and finally get her to talk.
So scary, like how it is described that life on the key was.
It's like she's telling a ghost story. Yeah. All these spooky things have started to happen.
Yeah, that they are just aware that there are monsters on this island.
This part though about Nan Melda thinking it's her fault what happened to the girls because she told them a story to try to make them feel better.
She tried to Charlie scared them, and so it sounds like she was trying to tell them a story about it, popping up to protect them, like that it was so fast it could be anywhere, and that had the opposite effect.
They got more afraid.
And she thought that another servant was playing a prank on the girls because she'd see Charlie moved around in so many places. And then it all starts to come together as things get more hectic.
And it was around this time that's when Percy had really just gained control over everything. So Edgar comes...
Oh, and this is where we find out, because last episode, the hint of they had a conversation where Percy couldn't hear, had no power. And we were like, where the fuck is that? And then Edgar draws a swimming pool. And I was like, holy shit.
Because the pool is fresh water.
Fresh water. It's such a fucking... It's so good. It's so simple and good. I love it.
So Edgar realizes that drowning Percy had been Nan Melda's idea. And when Elizabeth tried to erase her, even though it didn't get rid of her, it did hurt her. So she's less powerful than she would otherwise be, which is good for them. And he also realizes that when Elizabeth did this, Percy got retribution. And she basically is like, here's what I can do. And if you ever try anything else, I will kill the rest of your family. And Edgar takes the doll away from Jack with his right hand that Wireman totally sees. They do not make a deal of this at all. He's just like, whoa. And I guess, is that the most crazy thing he's seen?
Fair.
We get the next How to Draw a Picture chapter, and it's about Emery. And fuck, I hated this because it is okay if I just quickly run through it. So basically what happened with Emery, who's the person that was in Edgar's kitchen with who's going to take him with him.
To recap, we last anybody thought Adriana, it was
Addie and Emery.
Addie and Emery had left.
Yeah.
Well, they came back for the search for the girls, but then when it didn't turn up, they kind of slipped back to their lives.
And everyone assumed they'd went to Europe.
Right.
And no one ever heard from them again, and that's not suspicious.
They lived happily ever after.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that either.
Nope,
I've
not
also
until
bought
now.
it because it was like back in the day, and sometimes people did stuff
You could
like
just
that.
lose track of people.
Yeah. And so Emery he was walking along the beach. He was going to smoke a cigar, and he sees the twins in the water. And it wasn't just that he tried to save them and like they basically killed him. It was that part of why he did it, his motivation was like, oh my gosh, I can help them. And finally, John, my father-in-law, is going to, I'll earn his respect. Like, I can be part of this family. But when he reaches them, they pull him under.
He also doesn't realize that they are standing shin deep
Yeah.
in water that
ocean?
should have been
Yeah.
up to past their waist,
He's
which
so-
is real
yeah.
scary.
That's so scary.
He's so, although if it was us and
Yeah.
I saw you guys standing inexplicably, I'd still be like, I'm coming.
Right. Your brain kind of shuts down you never thought there'd be a chance.
Would you guys like, would you say,
you know what I'd do is yell out and be like, "Hey, what? Are you okay? What is?"
I'd bring you guys on a ghost ship with me.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, no.
I'd drown you
No, I
both
had to
and
think
take you
about
with
it.
me.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
That's
could
good
keep
to
doing
know.
our podcast.
From under the sea.
Yeah. This brings us to chapter 19 with April of 27. Edgar apparently passed out, like doing all this drawing, and we come back to him being shaken awake by Wireman and Jack. And he tells them, hey, we're done with the house, but we're going to need a ladder. And he tells Wireman that he thinks the heron that has been following them that he wants him to kill is Percy's spy. So definitely really, really kill it. They walk towards Shade Beach, and the Percy at anchor is just right there, not far away.
And the whole last few chapters are them being like, "Okay, we got like half an hour until the sun goes down."
Yeah.
It's.
Well,
I love how much of the scary stuff in this book happens in broad daylight.
Yes,
Yes.
it's really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What Edgar says next, though, here would make me bail. I'd be like, fuck you, man. He's like, oh, by the way, the ship is here for us. And if we don't
Oh,
finish our
right.
business by sunset, we're leaving the island as crew on that thing. Edgar clears up a few more things by showing them some drawings that he did. The whiskey jug with the word table on it, explaining like, okay, Percy showed Elizabeth a jug like that. A picture of Tessie and Laura pulling Emery into the ocean. He also, wait, it's the ocean, right? I can call it that. Okay, I just didn't know if I'd sound stupid if I didn't call it the Gulf.
And we find out that Nan Melda lied to Addie to keep her because she's pretty sure there was a trap laid out for her if she'd tried to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out what happens to Addie, but not quite yet. And we also find out that, Edgar explains to them, like, Nan Melda, she was the one who saved the day. She's the hero of the story.
She figured out how to drown her back to sleep. One of the sketches is the Nan Melda and Libet back in the pool, and that whiskey jug is sitting on the outside of the pool, and he pieces together. She can't hear her here. The plan is to have Percy distracted, and Libet. She says, she's like, "You'll hear screaming. Don't stop. Like, it might be me, it might be your sister, your dad. Whatever happens, keep doing it. Whatever you have to do to get this done."
We're going to pick back up with
And
that
she's
story shortly.
3, right?
Yeah, right? Well, we don't know how much time has passed, but based on how quickly his unbottling
Yeah.
happened, probably still
Yeah,
3.
like 3, 4, somewhere
Yeah.
in there.
Through all of this, they of course realize that Percy's weakness is fresh water because she's a saltwater creature. Like one of those exotic fish that you have to buy a special tank for and all this shit so it doesn't die.
She's
That's
some kind
Percy.
of like fucking evil sea goddess
Yeah.
of some sort.
Must be a Cthulian
Yeah.
old one.
She gives old one vibes.
Yeah, for sure.
I was just, this whole time I was waiting for tentacles to come out of that room. In the next How to Draw a Picture, we get Edgar's drawing of Addie on the beach. So do you guys want to talk about what happened to her?
So Addie goes down to the beach and sees Emery and the girls, and she wants to rush out to them, say the same trap that Emery fell into.
And Elizabeth's upstairs drawing right
Yes.
now. Like she's doing the plan. So this is all happening all at once.
And Nan Melda has run into John's office and said that she's on her way down there.
After putting on her mother's silver bracelet.
Yes, like something, the bracelets that she wore to church every Sunday, just something told her to have them on.
She shoves the harpoon gun in his hand.
Yeah.
He's like, your kids are gonna die.
Right.
And then sprints outside.
Which is also, that he mentions, the only time she's ever knocked to go into his room. But they rush down to the beach. there is an insane struggle where Emery's trying to pull Addie underwater, and Melda gets in the mix, and her bracelets touch Emery, and he screams and gets burned, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I wear a silver suit. Like every day I'm on Duma key.
The old silver lady's back off the key. But the struggle ends up with, oh my God, John shoots Addie in the throat.
On accident.
On accident.
He's trying to shoot Emery.
But I never know how I feel about a misfire killing a character. I'm never, because sometimes it feels like completely insane, and then other times it feels.
I feel like it worked for me here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But
because that's not the worst. It gets so much worse.
Shoots Addie through the throat, and he can't comprehend what this fight that is happening between Nan Melda and Emery. And Addie was yelling that Nan Melda was hurting Emery. It's all just sheer chaos.
She looks like she's hurting the girls now because she doesn't have silver on both hands. So I think Tessie, one of them bites her. And
they lobstrosity her fingers off.
Bite her. Yeah, I'm sorry. They don't bite her. They bite her fingers off. And so he's like screaming at Nan Melda to leave his daughters alone because he doesn't know what's happening.
And then he shoots her through the chest with a harpoon.
I hate Nan Melda's death as much as I hate Ilsa's.
Yeah, everything she does in the last half hour of her life is the hardest shit. Like, she is so cool.
And then she dies being called a slur.
Yeah, it sucks.
And like, and as we find out, cast aside in a cistern.
So now we're to chapter 20, Percy, with such a bizarre series of events that I did not expect. Because Jack is like, hey, we're losing the sun. Edgar's still like, no, we're good. But hey, do you see that spot over there? And it's where the base of Charlie had been. Because
we've also seen several times Charlie being drawn upside down for no apparent reason. Now we find out that is how they marked the entrance to the cistern where the bodies were dumped.
So before they tend to that, they go into the barn because the heron is still making an appearance. And it comes flying. It does. I didn't even think about this. It's like the cave scene in Desperation.
Yeah.
It's Desperation
when
Regulators.
The eagle attacks him.
Yeah. So it comes out and heads directly for Edgar, but luckily Wireman is Johnny on the spot. Johnny Marinville on the spot. And he kills it before it can hurt him. So it just sort of like just hits him gently as it dies.
And they all feel like the psychic scream of like, all right, Edgar was right.
Yep. And so they find a much smaller ladder than Edgar was hoping for. It's a small wooden ladder.
Yeah.
And the whiskey jugs he was hoping to find are all smashed. So he's like, shit, I have nothing to put Percy in to drown her now.
Honestly, for the best. They're all smashed.
Real dumb. Because leading up to this, when it got to this part where they start looking for a thing to put it in, I was like, why didn't he bring something?
Right.
But
because he didn't learn that until they were on the island.
My other thing was like, why does it have to be a closed thing? Just take her and throw her into the pool. And it wasn't until they're down in the cistern that I'm like, oh yeah, they'd have to carry it across the island. Never mind. I forgot where we were.
Jack is now going to be Johnny on the spot because he's like, dude, it's okay. We'll figure it out. We can drown her. Don't even worry about it.
And his confidence is such that Edgar's like,
okay.
Yeah, all right. But I'm telling you, I got no fucking clue.
It drives me crazy. I'd be like, you tell me fucking right now. Dude, this is important.
Yeah.
They go down into the cistern next. Let's talk about that.
But Edgar goes by himself.
I love it. Yeah. It's like, I'll go first. And Wireman's like, you have one arm. You're going to climb down a ladder?
Yeah. And he's like, well, I'm the lightest, and this is a spongy ladder. And Jack goes to offer him the flashlight, and he says, no, use it as a spot and spot me. And he's like, no, you need it. It's waterproof. When you get down there, throw the batteries out, fill this up with water, seal it up, good to go. And he's like, kiss me on the mouth.
It's such a clever bit of writing.
Yeah.
To get rid of your light source at the bottom of this hole.
Right?
it's so smart because when skipping ahead a little, when he puts the figurine in the flashlight, he then drops the lid and is panicking because they have to find this lid. He only has one arm and he's like he's going numb
because it's biting him.
Yeah, it tries to dig through his chest. There's a lot of stuff. I'm jumping all around.
You are.
Anyway.
This
whole part's really cool.
We can just talk about the end because what we skipped that we learn, and it's just sad. It's just good storytelling, but it's not good talkie telling. I hate that. I'm sorry. He's not alone down there, Edgar, because Nan Melda and Addie's skeletons are there with him, and he's like chest deep, I think, in water.
Yeah, and he can see the table, and that it has been leaking. It's almost probably about presumes halfway empty from where it stands. And in order to get it out, hefts it up and breaks it over his knee, which is fucking hardcore.
Yeah,
because it also doesn't break right away, and so it takes a few tries. But
yeah, he has to use both arms to do it.
Yeah.
Percy's screaming at him the entire time.
It fucking rules.
Well, and she bit him because he only has one arm and he has to fill the container with the water. He has to pour the jug into it, and so he had to like cradle her against his chest.
Put it in his shirt pocket.
And she's just gnawing through that thing.
I love that. He basically says, if you see me nude, you won't notice it because I have a shitload of scars.
That sucks.
But it does look like a rat tried to crawl into my heart.
While he's like struggling with this, and Ben, you said his hand is going numb and stuff, and he's like bleeding. Why he can hear commotion going on. I think they fixed the bridge, and so Jack and Wireman are like, dude, people are going to be on the island soon. How are we?
The sun is going down.
It's going down.
They see a boarding party has landed on the beach.
And he hears the laughter of children, which I think is very creepy in this.
So while the panic down below, you hear gunshots and Wireman and Jack talking shit because they're fighting off a zombie crew upstairs. And he finally gets the figure in the water and is searching for the cap, and he asks like Jack to come down. He's like, I need a hand, literally. And Jack comes down and he's searching, and there's the pop when he stands on Addie's skull, and they think that for a second he broke the lid.
Well, and he's like, what's that? And Edgar's like, you don't need to know.
Don't worry about it.
Because they can't see.
Yeah. And he eventually finds it, and they seal it. And basically the second it's sealed, everything is done. It's all over. It's fucking cool. It's like an eerie sense of silence.
Yeah, there's a really cool tension for the rest of this bit because the whole time they are like, Edgar keeps checking the thing because he's like, I've already begun thinking about how fucking waterproof a flashlight is from the inside.
Yeah.
This won't last forever. The thing that fell and cracked open the jug, was that completely an accident, or was that just the slow persistence of what was that Percy's version of digging through a wall with a spoon?
Yeah.
It's all, it's so cool. They go back to the house and wash up. They all take turns taking a shower. And then Edgar comes out of the shower and sees Wireman. He's like, where's fucking Jack? Where's the flashlight? It's like, chill, man.
Right. But just that I love that somebody is holding it always.
There's more tension here too because of a phone call a message that is waiting for them when they get back to Elizabeth's.
Yeah, it's the Tampa police. It is here where they get the news that the police are basically baffled as to why Mary Iyer brought a shitload of salt.
Yeah, they want to talk to Edgar about that strange detail in Elsa's murder. So Edgar walks back to Big Pink, where we get to catch up with that thing he did that I forgot about with the broom that we didn't see.
Yeah, they get ready and they're all like, wow, what a night. Okay, I'm heading out. And Edgar says he's going back to Big Pink and he's taking the flashlight with him. And
Which was also
Yeah.
what the fuck is
They're
happening?
like,
Yeah.
that's a terrible fucking idea. And he's like, sorry, I gotta do what I gotta do. And this part, you're starting to feel like, oh, like Edgar's not okay.
Yeah.
Like
because
he's
he had to
walking
like
back.
push that what happened to his
Mhm.
daughter back. Maybe now it's hitting him.
And as he's starting to head back to Big Pink, he is saying, he's talking about the shells under the house, the noise of the
Mhm.
shells, and how often he wasted time at Big Pink painting when he could have been listening to the voices of the shells. And you're like, oh, that's foreboding.
Yeah.
And he takes this long walk. He also makes a comment about how he's going to go home and take 3 Oxycontin,
Yeah.
which is a lot.
Mhm.
So this whole time I'm very worried and very not expecting that when he gets there, he sees Ilsa or something Ilsa like.
The Sandman version of Ilsa.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
She is like you said, almost literally, it is the creep show bit where she is waterlogged and drowned looking.
She's made of sand.
Yeah.
she's
like
also
a
made
sand
of-
golem.
Yeah, she's not drowned. She's pure sand.
Well, she's made of sand, but doesn't she look like the drowned corpse?
Well,
Am I bad at reading?
Well,
No.
it shambles. It does
Yeah.
like a corpsey shamble, but later it's described that the image is constantly changing. Like
It's like made of
the
sand.
face
Yeah.
is sometimes 7-year-old Ilse, sometimes it's 19-year-old Ilse.
In
So
my
I think
head,
it
as she's
rotates.
like shambling towards him, she starts being that very.
Gotcha. I mean that's
Yeah.
very cinematic. I feel dumb because I didn't realize because I had completely forgotten about the broom thing and what he maybe was doing. So I didn't realize that's like he's like, okay, I'll draw whatever you want, and then he gets the urge to draw, and then he blacks out and draws. So and Elizabeth's like, no, you can't do that. And he's like, just did it. He did it. Like,
He did it.
this is Ilsa's monkey pod back to life by Percy, basically.
It was a Percy Hail Mary. It was a last ditch effort.
It also made me realize here too, and then it gets resolved right away, but I was so like, oh my God, no, because I was finally putting together because everything like happened so quickly that, oh, it's Addie and Nan Melda aren't ghosts because they weren't drowned in salt water like everybody else. And I'm like, oh my God, his daughter's just like going to be this unrestful spirit forever. But no, that's not the point of this.
Yeah, because Ilse's spirit says, hey, listen, come with me. Like, everything's terrible. Like, you don't want to keep going. Let's call it quits. You can come live on the boat with me, and I'll be just how you remember me, or you can not remember it all. Either
That
way,
offer.
yeah.
That
it's-
spun a crazy story in my head.
Oh, yeah, because this whole, like I said, this whole walk, I'm like, oh, he's going back to kill himself. I truly believed that. And this is, I think you are supposed to be like, oh, is he going to take this offer? But it's when she kind of, what was it that breaks the spell?
Oh.
Because it says something about,
Well, because he's not really like entranced that way. Because she is coming towards him, and she's reaching towards the flashlight, and he's like, "She's not in here."
Maybe it's because he's wearing the silver bracelets. He kept Nan Melda.
That's right.
And he asked permission
I
to
forgot
her
about that.
skeleton and felt like she gave it. But I'm wondering if maybe that kind of saved him a little bit. Which this also, Ben, you mentioned it, like he has the choice. He could not remember anything. That kind of goes with that theory of like, what's the point of this book? Like losing yourself by being made to forget. And even though it's painful, like keep who you are. Don't forget that.
being able to remember hard things is better than forgetting. I guess.
Memory is identity.
Yeah.
You are the summation of your memories.
You can't escape it.
If you sacrifice your memories, you cut off a whole piece of who you are.
What would be the point to go with Ilsa and be with her if he can't remember anything? Anyway, just trying to come back to the theme we're trying to make happen here. But as we said, he's not going to fall for this, fortunately. And instead of going with Ilsa, he touches the bracelets to her. She just...
turns into a crazy sand monster and then blows away.
You never take those bracelets off, right?
No, right. No. It's rose matter. I wouldn't give me that arm bangle. I'm keeping it on forever.
So we jump ahead a little to June, and Edgar and Wireman are getting rid of the flashlight cylinder with Percy inside.
Such a good
Is
bit.
it though?
It's a
pond.
freshwater
It's a
lake.
lake.
Oh, I
Yeah.
missed that. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Here's my thing, though. It's still in Florida.
No, it's in Minnesota.
Why am I...
You and I both. Were you listening? Were you listening or reading?
Listening.
I was listening too, Josh. Listen
I was
or read.
reading.
Oh,
Okay.
you listeners, you can't. You have to read the book to catch it all. So much happens.
So much
It is
happens.
hard to listen to.
They give you a hint that when they're on the boat, Wireman's in a Vikings hoodie. He's in a Viking sweater.
Sports.
And
Okay.
he says something to the effect of like, I don't know why I didn't think of this location sooner. I've owned this property forever. It's the place he was staying at before he moved to Duma.
Oh, he also owns a lot of other shit too, which we didn't mention. He inherited all of Elizabeth's
Wireman
estate.
owns
Yeah.
fucking everything
Yeah,
now.
Wireman's, and he settled with her relatives. He's after they drop Percy down into the water. He brings him up to speed.
Let's talk about Percy's tomb, because that's very important. Because a flashlight isn't going to contain Percy forever.
Yeah, this is
so
smart.
they decide to
Put it in a thermos.
put it in a silver thermos.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a silver worker in in Mexico that Elizabeth had commissioned several pieces from this artist, and was like, it'll be expensive, but I'm $30 million. So yeah, let's go for it. So they have a custom time capsule made of silver that is also filled with the flashlight and another batch of fresh water, and is being dropped into this freshwater lake.
Poor Silver.
Right. Just occasionally go out and like throw sprinklings of silver onto the lake.
Well, I was going to say, encase the silver canister in concrete then. Like,
Right. Stop taking chances.
Okay, so as we're wrapping this up, we get just that quick update on Wireman settling Elizabeth's estate and
then
giving her relatives a property, just sort of, even though he didn't have to.
Right. He gave him all of Duma.
We then get a very Shawshank moment where Wireman's like, hey, come live with me in Mexico.
I'm opening a hotel in Zihuatanejo.
Yeah, it's not, but I cannot pronounce the word. I'm not even going to try. But he's like, hey, I need a contractor to come help me out. And Edgar's like, I need more time. I have one more picture to paint. It's a storm. Wireman's like, you're not going to, like, people aren't going to die, right? And Josh, I think you called this.
Yeah, weirdly, that he's going to summon a hurricane to bury Duma Key.
Mm-hmm. And if we thought that Elizabeth's death was going to hurt us, if we thought that Ilsa's death was going to hurt us, we have one more blow.
Because before he leaves, it basically Edgar says, "Look, I'll come down. I got some things to do. We'll get around to it." Is the tone we're left with, and then once again we are hit with that. We always think there will be time, because while the third life that Edgar is writing this memoir from is in Mexico, in this town, it is not with Wireman, because he died 2 months after that trip.
The La Loteria, which is a thing we haven't really talked about much, but so we end, How to Draw a Picture, the last chapter. And we didn't mention this either, because it's another theme, though, that throughout the last couple, we've gotten some advice from Edgar about how to draw a picture. Like, that's part of the purpose, too. We didn't really touch on that. But this one is where he's like, it's important to know in how to draw a picture, like when to stop, when to put that shit down.
When it's time to be done and walk away. What is it? Something like everything else is just real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
So, ratings?
Yeah.
I'll go first. Yeah, I didn't read this book.
It is hard to listen to. I struggled too, just because of how it's told.
Yeah, I really like this book. Apparently, see, that's the thing is, my one complaint is like, it is very much one of those, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. the end. And I wish it played a little more into being about Edgar's anger. I wish it was about the healing power of art and memory. But I don't think it really is.
Like, where's Joy? I'm sorry to interrupt during your rating. It's very rude of me. But like, we compared it to Joyland a lot, and I realized that whereas like Joyland was really that slice of life with a mystery thrown in, this is a mystery with
A little bit
slice
of real life. Yeah, you wanted it to be sort of reversed.
Yeah,
and it wasn't what I was expecting.
I get that.
Yeah, I just wish there was a little bit more, that the themes ran a little deeper. That said, the character work in this is some of King's best in his modern books. I really, really like how he writes relationships in this, even the rough ones. So many of even the small characters feel like real people, and it's just a really fucking cool ghost story. I'm going to give it a very high 4 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
Nice.
Yeah, I really like it. It's very fun. What I think I like about it the most is that ending is so quick, but it makes sense in a satisfying way that I think, much like you, Ben, I will have in a year or two forgotten these last few chapters. And so when I do get around to reading again, I will probably be just as hyped with those surprises again, because the mystery pays off in a satisfying way for me. I get why people thought it was meandery. I think if I wasn't on the timeline for reading it for the podcast, it could have gotten away from me. And that could be where it suffers for some people, because if you take your time with this book, it's probably gonna drop in rating. But for this, I think it clipped along really well for me, despite the meandery parts. So I'm gonna go 4 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
Nice. I mentioned earlier that I had nightmares. But the funny thing is, over the last few weeks, I've had trouble sleeping. I just wake up and I'm wide awake. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm awake now. And I'm like so wide awake that sometimes I have to get up and just do something else at like 3 a.m. And I remembered having a really bad nightmare. And I messaged you guys, like the first thing I did when I woke up the next morning is that I messaged you guys that I had a nightmare, because it was after we talked about the faces in the water and in the painting. And I discovered in telling my husband about some of my nightmares that what I thought was happening was that I was just waking up in the middle of the night, like wide awake. But what was actually happening, because if there were a few times where Devin woke me up because he like put his arm on me or something, or like grabbed me, and I'm like, okay, that's weird.
How dare you touch me?
Yeah, it's because I was like thrashing and screaming in my sleep, because I've been having nightmares for several weeks, a couple times a week. And
Good
I didn't
God.
remember any of, like, not quite night terrors, but pretty close. And I just kept thinking, like, why is he waking me up? And why am I so wide awake? Because I didn't remember. I only remembered one of the nightmares.
Well, that's probably
And
for the best.
Right.
It's funny, though, because Josh, you and I were talking to Devin, and you mentioned you had nightmares, too. And Devin's like, oh, because he hasn't read Duma. He's like, oh, so it's a scary book. And we're both like, no. It isn't. But it is haunting. And it doesn't happen often, because I don't get scared by a lot, that we read a Stephen King book and I have nightmares about it. I'll read this again. Just my experience with it has been very positive. All the criticisms totally make sense, but for me, it's a 5 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
That's it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episode, where we will be jumping back into Everything's Eventual for a little detour, where we are going to be covering Little Sisters of Illyria. That's right, we're going back to the Dark Tower world. For Benjamin Graham and CM Alexander, I'm Joshua Kahn reminding you, forgetting isn't always involuntary. Sometimes it's willed.
Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. Thank you for listening to Duma Part 3. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know your thoughts on our Facebook or Instagram at Derry Public Radio or X at Derry Public. You can also send us an email at derrypublicradio@gmail.com. And if you would like to get into deeper discussions about our current reads and just all things horror and Stephen King, check out our Discord page. The link for that is in the show notes. Please also take a moment to check out our Etsy store and our Patreon for merchandise and bonus episodes. You can search Derry Public Radio on both of those platforms. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.